Google has done something that I and a lot of other people think is incredibly stupid, and that is they're offering the registration of a brand new top-level domain extension of .zip, meaning you can now register domains like example.zip or whatever. But a lot of people have pointed out that the fact that .zip is a very common file extension could be used to create malicious links. For example, can you tell which of these URLs goes to Microsoft and which would go somewhere else, like downloading a virus? And in both of them, those are all normal letters, by the way. I'll explain which it is in a minute. Or another example, you could share a link with someone that is just attachment.zip, and they might click it not realizing that it's actually a URL. And then the general thing that people are saying is the scammer could put up a phishing site that says to download this, you have to type in your password for whatever website, that sort of thing. But I don't think that's the biggest concern. Rather, it's another trick that someone pointed out, how you can make 100% legitimate looking URLs to a supposed zip file and make it appear like it comes from any domain at all. For example, here are two supposed URLs to a theoretical update zip file on Microsoft's website. This isn't actually anything hosted by Microsoft. Let's just pretend that one of these is real and one of them is malicious. Can you tell which one would download a zip file with a virus in it and which one is the actual download? And to be clear, that domain, Microsoft.com, it actually is those letters. There's no lookalike letters there. And yet, one of them is non-Microsoft.com. How is that possible? Well, the trick comes from the fact that most web browsers support a really old feature where you could put a username and password in a URL itself. And it would look something like this: username, password at whatever website, example.com. The example.com is the actual domain that would be visited by the browser, and anything with the at, including, and before is part of this username syntax. So the browser would take you to example.com. But here's how that could be used maliciously with the .zip domain. You could actually create a link where HTTPS is basically the username before that colon, and then you do // and then literally whatever you want, and all you have to do is tack an at before the final zip domain. And if someone didn't know that that at sign means that the browser is basically going to discard anything before it, then they're not going to realize that that final whatever .zip is the actual domain they're visiting. Now, there is an additional caveat with that, which is that these slashes are not actually regular slashes. They're Unicode characters that look exactly like slashes. Because if you actually put real slashes, the browser would think it's part of a path, which really wouldn't work with the username syntax. But if you put some of these fake Unicode slashes, then the browser just thinks that's part of the password. So you can imagine how this would make it possible to make a zip file appear like it's being hosted on literally any website at any path. Now, there have been several arguments put forward that this probably won't make that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things, because there's plenty of other ways that bad actors can create malicious or impersonating domains. For example, a lot of companies like Google have alternative domains that they use for other stuff, like withgoogle.com. And I know Facebook has like facebookmail.com and stuff like that. So they're still legitimate. So it's sometimes hard to tell even normally what a real domain is and what a fake one is. So from my understanding, their point is that it's already easy enough to just make a domain that looks reasonable enough where it wouldn't raise suspicion to most people. And my response to that is, yes, there's a group of people who are not technologically savvy enough to realize, this isn't the main domain. Maybe I should check to see if this is actually associated with Google or Facebook or whatever. And they're just gonna trust it because it looks right. However, there is a set of people like myself who might see withgoogle.com or facebookmail.com. I've seen emails come from that, and I say, wait a minute, is that actually Facebook? And I will go and check, and I'll like copy and paste it and stuff, make sure there's no lookalikes, and I'm like, is this a legit domain? And I'm sure I'm not the only one. And my point is, this zip domain and that user password trick allows someone to create a link that looks 100% legitimate. It's not a lookalike domain. It's not a slightly modified domain to make it look like it might be associated with the website. It literally allows you to make a URL that looks like it's the exact primary domain of any company you want. So yeah, there's people who you could trick without having to do all that, But there is another group of people who that would work on that it otherwise wouldn't be able to trick. And I would say this is also especially risky because this might be able to make someone trust a link that they otherwise wouldn't, depending on the source of it. So say someone at company X gets an email from a domain that's companyxmail.com, and they've never seen that before. They're like, is this really associated with the company? I've never seen it before. But then they see that it's sending a link to say, oh, there's a new update you have to install. It's from corporate. And the link appears to go to the primary domain of the company, like companyx.com. And so the employee dutifully looks and checks letter by letter that, well, it's actually companyx.com. It's the main domain. And, they even hover over the link and see that it matches up. It really goes to that link. So they think, oh, well, I guess it is legitimate because it goes to the real company domain. Whereas that same user might even know about impersonating domains. So if it was anything other than literally the primary domain, they might investigate it further. If it was companyxfiles.com, they'd be like, what is this domain? I've never seen it before. But again, because the main domain, they might trust it when they wouldn't have. But it doesn't have to be an email. It could be a forum post, a Discord link or something like that, where someone might say, hey, this is a file from Microsoft or NVIDIA, it's a driver, whatever they say it is. And while someone might not trust a Dropbox link or another link to a website they know that anyone can just upload a file to, but now a scammer could tell a story of, hey, there's a brand new NVIDIA driver update that you have to download separately. It's a patch and it'll make your FPS go faster, and here it is. And it's called something like nvidia.com/patch/whatever date.zip. The victim may look at that and say, well, this is obviously actually at nvidia.com, and the path looks right. It patches today's date. It's exactly what this person said. I guess it's real, and they'll download it, and it might be a virus inside instead. Or in the case of a company where a lot of computers are locked down and it won't let you execute any executables that aren't whitelisted, then instead, it might be a phishing page where it says, all right, here's the download link. And when the person tries to click on it, it says, oh, you have to log in first to download it. And then they'll type in the company credentials that way. So there's a lot of ways they can do this. Now, another argument I've seen is that this isn't really a big deal. It's not going to change much because it's already really easy to make really convincing lookalike domains using lookalike characters. Take example.com. You could replace the L with a capital I, and anyone looking at it, even really closely, wouldn't be able to tell that that's a capital I. And while that is true, I would argue that there's only a limited combination of lookalike characters you could use. For example.com, I can't really think of too many more besides that capital I replacing the L. And if a malicious actor decides to use that domain in a malware campaign, they're only going to be able to use it once before it gets detected and blocked basically forever as being malicious. So yes, for some websites, you could make a domain that equally looks as legitimate as a fake .zip domain link, but there's a limited number of those and you can only do that once. Whereas with this .zip domain and this technique with the @ you could create unlimited 100% lookalike domains for any website you want. Because say you make a fake Microsoft link to tpsreport.zip, well, eventually, that tpsreport.zip domain is going to get blocked. But then you could just make an exactly the same looking one with tpsreport.v2.zip and use the same exact beginning that looks 100% like Microsoft.com. And I'm sure that long ago, all the reasonably looking Microsoft.com lookalike domains have already been banned or bought up by Microsoft anyway. So if you were going to make a lookalike domain, you would have had to make it more and more convoluted as the previous ones get banned. And as that happens, a smaller and smaller fraction of people would fall for it. But now you don't have to convolute it at all. You can make it the actual primary domain. Now, you might be wondering what you can do to protect against this going forward. And one thing you could do is when you go to inspect a URL to tell if it's safe, look for an @ sign anywhere in there, and that could be a red flag, especially if it's before the final part that looks like it could be a domain. But also watch out because someone pointed out a trick where you could make the @ sign tiny 1-point font and white color, so it would basically be invisible. So you definitely want to make sure that you hover over it so you can see the full URL or copy and paste it into Notepad or something. Or the other thing you could do is just completely block all .zip domains. Just block the entire top level domain. If you have Windows 10 or 11 Pro, this is actually really easy. You can go into the group policy editor and add a policy that redirects the .zip namespace to 127.0.0.1 or whatever you want, and I'll put pictures here how to do that. Someone on Twitter posted how to do that. But if you're like most people who have Windows Home Edition, you don't have access to the group policy editor. Instead, what you could do is use a third-party DNS service to block them. One example, which is what I've been using for the past several months, is called NextDNS. And this is not sponsored at all, by the way. But basically how it works is you put your DNS servers on your computer or your router or whatever to use this NextDNS, and it's unique to your account. So you could go in and modify any settings for what you want to block and stuff. And they have a whole bunch of built-in filters for blocking like known malicious domains, also new domains that have been recently registered, which is another one that I like to block. And there's also a spot to block top level domains altogether. And I added .zip amongst a bunch of other ones actually. For example, there's a company called Spamhaus that keeps a list of top level domain extensions that have appeared in the most malicious websites. So I just literally block all those. And if I happen to come across a website that I want to access that I know is legit, you can simply whitelist as needed. There's a section for that. And there is a setup guide if you don't know how to do that already. Now, NextDNS is not free, but it's pretty cheap. I forget how much it is, but it's not expensive at all. But there are other DNS services out there that might be free, like OpenDNS. I don't know if they allow blocking top level domains altogether, but I'm sure there's others that are out there. Or if you are an IT professional who manages computers for a company, you might want to definitely add that company-wide as a blocked top level domain. And you could do that with the group policy editor. Or you could probably do it with the firewall too. So just be aware of this potentially brand new threat that's out there, and hopefully now you know how to spot it. But let me know down in the comments, do you think this is as big of a deal as people are making out to be? Or maybe I am overblowing it and it won't make too much of a difference. Let me know. Either way, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a giant thumbs up for my YouTube algorithm overlords. And if you want to keep watching, the next video I'd recommend is where I was talking about the difference between Windows Pro and Home Edition. I already mentioned that Group Policy Editor is one of those, but there's a few other differences as well. So you can just click on that right there. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.